Yes, right now we are joined by former Minnesota Governor Tim Pawlenty. Hello, sir. Good to see you. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Good morning to you and your viewers.
Okay, let's first get your reaction. We knew it was maybe happening. We knew it was possible that he would be tapped. What do you think?
Well, first of all, congratulations to Governor Walz. This is a huge honor and a huge accomplishment. I know him and I like him. I don't agree with him politically, but my congratulations to him. And it also brings some attention and some fun to Minnesota politics as well. Beyond that, I would say the pick represents a couple things. One is it's a doubling down of sort of the so-called progressive or Democratic Social Alliance agenda. I think he and Vice President Harris are aligned philosophically and politically. But what he brings to the table is a different style and different geography. She has sort of the San Francisco, California vibe. He's going to have sort of the Bernie Sanders and hunting gear vibe. So it's the same product, just in different wrappers.
Okay, so what are you hearing from your colleagues on the other side? I mean, we kind of see where this may be going as far as, you know, we've heard, of course, a lot of praise for him this morning, but also it's hard to discount what happened here following George Floyd and the civil unrest. How do you expect your Republican friends to react to this and to perhaps from now until the election to go after Walz? Because, of course, that's
Sure.
This is politics.
Yep. Well, the Trump campaign hit list is going to include the following. Number one, failure to timely send in the Guard after the Minneapolis riots. Number two, the biggest spending increases in the history of the state of Minnesota, 40% or nearly so in one budget cycle. Rising crime. Big high-profile fraud cases within state government under his watch, with a legislative auditor, nonpartisan, saying you're not taking it seriously, you're not taking our feedback seriously, and more. And of course, the target audience for a lot of this is going to be persuadable voters in swing states, and I think that's going to be of interest to those voters.
Kind of take us back. Obviously, want to pick your brain. Several years back, you were considered to be on that short list as well. What was that like? And maybe kind of take us through what has been happening behind closed doors, behind the scenes for Governor Walz as we finally are getting to this point today.
Yeah, well, of course, in my case, the process was longer because we had the traditional campaign calendar. Here it was very much abbreviated, but it included responding to a long, lengthy written questionnaire that delved into everything from your health, your finances, your political record, your family, your relatives, you know, any litigation, your investments, everything. And then all of those documents had to be produced and sent in. There were interviews. You know, lawyers came out from Washington and interviewed you and cross-examined you about your whole life. Eventually, you know, you fly around with, in that case, John McCain around the country and around the world and sort of audition for the role. And then at the end, when all the information is submitted and all is done, you just have to sit and wait. And that's an anxious, hopeful time. I'm sure the last 24, 48 hours for Governor Walz were all of that. And then he finally got the call. And good for him that he did. Congratulations. But as that last period of time, you know, it's anxious. It's an anxious and interesting and hopeful time.
Sure. Yeah, the vetting process, as you said, so many questions, and they have to be thorough because really, if there's anything in their past, it needs to come out beforehand. And it's been a shorter period of time, as we know. You said that you and Governor Walz, that you're on different sides of the aisle, you have different opinions about certain things, but you. From just having some kind of a personal relationship with him, can you tell us a little bit more about the way that you've seen him operate when it comes to talking to people, you know, out there, Minnesotans in general?
Yeah, on a personal level, he's energetic, he's friendly, he's folksy, he's interested in issues, he likes to campaign, he can talk like most politicians. I used to say, talk dogs off a meat wagon. And I think the so-called Walz word salads will have to be tightened up because you can get away with that in local politics. But when you're on the national stage, they'll have to tighten some of that up a little bit, but they will. But he's a good campaigner, and he's a strong campaigner, and he likes to campaign. And I'm sure that'll shine through in the next 90 days. Their problem isn't going to be, you know, campaign style or skills or energy. It's going to be, is America ready for a doubling down on sort of this Democrat socialist agenda? Trump's got his own problems, by the way. I think this ticket, the Harris-Walz ticket, would be pretty beatable if the Republicans had a better candidate. You know, they're going to be able to take advantage of the fact there's a bunch of Republicans and independents who don't like Trump.
You mentioned too, obviously, maybe one of the appeals, we don't know, obviously you're looking at all these little indicators. One of the ideas behind maybe picking Walz was kind of trying to hit that upper Midwest area and try to maybe obviously get Minnesota, but maybe Wisconsin, maybe Michigan, maybe some of those spots that appear to be up in the air at this point. Do you think his experience here in Minnesota, his reputation in Minnesota, plays well with voters in Wisconsin and Michigan, maybe even parts of Ohio, Pennsylvania, that kind of vibe? What do you think?
Well, I think, again, it's a clever pick in this regard. Vice President Harris gets her philosophical, policy mate, but it comes in a wrapper that looks and feels and presents and sounds stylistically and tonally Midwestern. Again, I like to say it's Bernie Sanders in hunting gear, and we'll see if that works. But I think the Trump campaign is going to make it very clear that this just isn't some moderate centrist person. This is, they're going to characterize it as a radical ticket, and I don't know how well that'll sell in places like Pennsylvania, for example.
So can we take from this conversation that you are not a supporter of the Trump campaign? Because you seem to suggest that there are people out there that are not really happy about the pick.
Well, first of all, I'm not going to vote for the Harris-Walz ticket because I'm not into, sort of hard left politics and approaches. I've also expressed my skepticism for Trump. No question. I have voted for him in the past. He obviously has his limitations. I'm not sure I would characterize myself as, well, I'm certainly a strong Republican. I may end up supporting President Trump. We'll see. I'm not prepared to announce that or say that today.
Governor, as far as kind of those you mentioned, maybe on both parties, there's a lot of people who aren't super thrilled on either side. Or we've talked a lot about that, kind of the independents, the undecided, who are waiting for something to tip them to one, to the left or to the right. Do you think this is a choice that will help tip some of those undecided, or will it make it even more of a gray area?
I think the latter, for this reason. Most people don't vote for or against the vice presidential candidate. Data supports that. But there's a whole bunch of people in this country who are going to say, look, I don't want socialism or a further drift towards socialism, and this ticket kind of looks and feels like it might be headed in that direction, or at least the Democrat Social Alliance version of it, like Bernie Sanders. But they're also going to say, I don't like Trump. Because of all of the obvious reasons that we're well familiar with. So there's a subgroup of voters, and I think this is the swing voters that are going to decide this election. Do you hold your nose and vote for which ticket? If you're in that category of sort of the so-called double haters or double concerned or double skeptics of both tickets. And they're not going to vote for one or the other because they love them. They're going to like one side or they're going to be more favorable, I think, towards a side that is more reasonable. And Trump's going to have to demonstrate that he can attract some of those people by having a somewhat better campaign style. I mean, he needs to be at least 10 or 15 or 20% better than he was at the convention. He had a great opportunity to go before the country and say, I'm going to be better. I'm going to be somewhat of a unifier. I'm still going to be Trump. But instead, he went off script and did his usual shtick, and people are like, whoa, this is bringing back some flashbacks.
Yeah, how well do you think that Trump can pivot? Because we know that he was expecting to run against Biden. Biden is stepping away from running again. What, as far as him pivoting and changing messaging, we haven't seen much of that with Donald Trump. How do you think he's going to handle this now, considering he has really two new candidates, essentially, that he's running against?
That's a really great question, and a really important point is, does Donald Trump have it in him to be more disciplined to make the pivot that you just described? And these are new targets for him, but I don't think it'll be long before he gets his message, and we'll see if he can stay with a message. That's part of the problem, is does he have the ability to focus and sustain and repeat a message that works, and we'll see about that. One quick thing off question is, in this race for the VP job, one of the underreported elements of this story is the campaign within the campaign that sort of took out the contenders. And there always is this campaign, but it's usually done privately. By the way, Brian McClung, one of your upcoming guests, if he would have done this better for me, maybe I would have gotten selected. But the interest groups within the Democratic Party sort of took out Mark Kelly, the labor unions, the private labor unions were mad at him for some labor stuff, and you can't have a base campaign with the labor unions. That's a huge part of the Democratic Party mad at you to start. So then Josh Shapiro in Pennsylvania was for school choice, and that ticked off the teacher unions, and that's a huge part of the Democratic Party. And then he was also is very pro-Israel. That ticks off the sort of growing Palestinian base within the Democratic Party, or pro-Palestine base within the Democratic Party. And so those other contenders there was a campaign within the campaign that Governor Walz sort of skated above or avoided, and the progressives kind of embraced him. I think that helped him get the spot.
Yeah, I guess that was going to be my question. Do you think that Governor Walz had fewer knocks on his record, and that's what bumped him up?
From a progressive intra-Democratic Party perspective, yes. Yes, because the progressives said, we're not mad at Governor Walz. In fact, we celebrate his progressive championship. He's proclaiming he's the progressive champion. And the other candidates had baggage in that regard.
How difficult will it be for Governor Walz to be running for VP and be Kamala Harris's pick and just kind of wide-scoped type of campaign, and then also be the governor as well and all of those duties? Do you think that he can, earlier Senator Tina Smith said that she thought he could do those two things at once. Do you think that that is possible, or do you see some problems there?
I see potential problems. I think as long as nothing happens big, right now it's summertime, the legislature's not in session, but pretty soon you got to get prepared for the session. And there's work to be done in that regard. But keep in mind, there's always tornadoes, there's always floods, there could be other events that require the governor to be ready. And if something like that happens and he's AWOL, that's going to be an issue, and he'll have to suspend campaigning and come back and deal with it, and as he should.
You know this world very well. We've got less than 100 days until the election. Kind of give us an overview, kind of a look ahead. How do you see this happening on both sides, and what do you think will be kind of their talking points going forward?
I think that the Trump campaign is going to characterize the Harris Walz ticket as basically a quasi-socialist ticket that's out of step with mainstream America. And again, keep in mind, the target audience here is just the persuadable voters in a small number of swing states. So it's not even really the whole country. And for those voters, they may look at the Harris Walz ticket and say, yeah, they look really, really liberal, and I'm uncomfortable with that. And of course, that side is going to look at Trump and say, we can't have a person who sometimes acts like a complete maniac back in the White House. And I think that's basically going to summarize the campaign.
All right. Well, former Governor Tim Pawlenty, thank you so much for joining us this morning. We appreciate your opinion, your thoughts on the pick for him as VP.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me. Bye-bye.
Bye.